Hello there, everyone. How you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going into r/entitled people, where the people are, oh my god, who could have guessed it? Entitled. If you enjoy, like and subscribe and leave a comment with your thoughts down below. Now, without further ado, let's get started. It costs $1.25, not free for taking. I'm sure everyone who's gone to the movies has seen flavored salts for popcorn. At the theater I worked at, we have been laying them on a small rack on the registers, and I was told we used to have a price label on it, but people and kids would rip them off, so management stopped replacing them. So people now believe it's free for taking, and in this story, I had to get more serious to get them to listen to me. It had been a decent morning, and my shift was about to end in about an hour or so. I've been working concession stand for about 6 months, and I knew how to handle things, especially when it came to customers, who take long time debating on what to order, and I'm a pretty patient person. But even so, some people still manage to irk me, and it's usually those who just grab the salt off the rack and try to sprinkle it off their popcorn, only to give me the surprised Pikachu face when I say, "Oh, that'll be $1.25 for the salt." Luckily, it's still sealed, but it doesn't stop them from still wanting to open it.
What? This little thing is $1.25. I thought it was free because it's just sitting here.
No, it's $1.25. Managers just place it here so it's easier to manage.
It can't be $1.25. I came here all the time and it's always free.
I was told by the GM herself that it's been $1.25 since the building opened. So you want to buy it or not? They'd usually give me a disgusted look before throwing it back on the counter and walking away. I just pick it up to make sure it's not cracked or broken before placing it back on the rack. A few minutes later, it's near the end of my shift, and I'm finishing up my last customer's order. As soon as my replacement signs into the register, I log out and head out. Only hear a little giggling from my salt rack, and see a small hand grabbing the cheddar cheese salt off the rack. "Hey, that's not for you to take, kid." And he realized he'd been caught, but instead of putting it back, he immediately bolts away, not before grabbing a handful of candy off the rack. I call after him, but the little goblin just kept running, and I sprint out after him, yelling that he has to pay for that. Luckily, he didn't make it too far before I caught up to him. His parents were waiting for him at the auditorium door and questioned why I was following their child. I explained that he took some items from the stand, and he either puts them back or pays for them. At first, I thought the parents were going to have him return them, but instead, the entitled dad, I'll call him Chad, says, "Well, I don't see the problem with him taking it. It's free, isn't it?" No, the cheddar cheese salt is $1.25, and the candies are $1.50 per pack. Entitled Mom, aka Karen, said,
"Our son would never steal things. I'm sure you're just mistaking him for someone else."
I watched him take it from the rack and run away. Why else would I be calling out to him?
"But I just want some candy,"
the child says. You still have to pay for it. It's considered stealing if you just run off with it. "Well, he wants it, and we're missing our movie. We'll pay for it afterwards before we head out." The previews just started. One of you can still go and pay for it.
"Or you could just leave us alone, or we're going to report you for harassing us and our child."
I can have security come and escort you to the front, where you can pay for the salt and candies. Your choice. The Chad looked pissed, and I'm not an intimidating person. I'm very much the opposite. A soft-spoken person, and I'm very shy as well as short. but I've dealt with getting picked on, bullied, and pushed around by others, that I wasn't going to let them get away with it.
I'm gonna have you fined for harassment because this is unacceptable. You're claiming my boy stole from you when he clearly didn't.
At this point, I was getting angry, and when I spotted security, I waved them over to get him to deal with the entitled parents, who tried to let their hobgoblin sneak away, until I pointed out he was the cause of this argument, which his parents again denied, and when they became too loud, security was forced to have them move away from the auditorium, since I'm sure the other moviegoers were able to hear them. The manager, the GM herself, was called, and I told them my side of the story when the entitled parents still claimed that their hobgoblins didn't steal anything, until GM suggested checking the cameras to verify what actually happened. The dads started making excuses about how they were missing their movie, before claiming the hobgoblins should get to keep the salts and candies as compensation for them missing their movie, admitting that their little hobgoblin did in fact steal them. River, not giving in to them, told them either one of you can pay for it or we can get you a refund and you can leave.
This is utter bullcrap. Why do we have to pay for it when it's sitting right there? It should be free just for sitting right out in the open. Forget it. This place is terrible. We're leaving and never coming back again.
And then security said,
You still have to hand over the things that wasn't paid for.
And then the dad takes everything back from his hobgoblin and throws them onto the ground before dragging his screaming goblin away, followed by his just as entitled, annoying wife Karen, who was glaring daggers at us, remarking,
I was right about this place being racist towards white people, always picking on us and just stealing our jobs. You just lost yourself some customers. And by the way, AMC is better.
Yes, so go there then, my general manager said. Karen and the Chad give us one final glare, maybe even flipping the bird at us, I can't say. But I was busy cleaning up the spilled salt to notice. I never saw them again afterwards, but I honestly didn't care, 'cause I've dealt with the worst hobgoblins and the worst entitled parents. TLDR, Hobgoblin steals stand items, and his parents don't see why that's bad, and they get told off by GM. On to the next story. We left you a surprise after our sexy time in the pool, the Bad Neighbor Chronicles. This story continues the saga of Tish, my upstairs neighbor from a few years back, from when hubby and I lived in what turned out to be a cursed complex for bad mothers. As you guys know from my previous story, Tish wasn't a great mother. She'd gotten pregnant with Jay unexpectedly when she was in her first year of college. And from what Jay's father intimated in conversation with hubby later on, their relationship as a couple deteriorated soon after Jay was conceived, because the father's family didn't want him bogged down by a woman they considered to be a gold digger. To be honest, I never pegged Tish as a gold digger. Trash mom? Yeah. Gold digger? No. In fact, you don't know about Jay. You'd have a thought of Tish as a typical young working woman, ready at all times for a good time. She had a degree, a real one. I know because I had a friend in the same program as Tish. She had a good job, and as for her choice of men, well, the only gold they could offer was the metallic flake from their fake chains. It was obvious from the noises hubby and I heard from above on nights Jay was at his paternal grandparents' house, that Tish only needed one thing from these guys. And you know what? Good for her. Just keep it down, or we, the people downstairs, will interpret your incessant cries of pleasure as an invitation for competition. Anyway, one of the perks of the complex was the pool. It was big, with a spacious deck for entertaining, and invisible from the main road. However, the pool was hardly ever maintained. It often built up algae, and the pump was always broken. It was just another example of our landlord's negligence. She only came around 4 times a year to inspect the complex, and she was difficult to get a hold of if you needed maintenance in your apartment. Mind you, she didn't care much if you fixed the issue yourself and sent her a bill. So, for a time, hubby and I just accepted that we'd have to deal with the headache of maintaining our apartment ourselves. Since hubby knew a lot of water treatment and pool systems, he took it upon himself to maintain the pool, too. We never told our landlord about it, and she never asked questions. Hubby didn't mind since we used the pool more than anyone else, and he found cleaning the pool therapeutic. Well, summer came around, and Jay was shipped off to his maternal grandmother on another island in our country. We live in the Caribbean. And that meant Tish had a whole lot more free time, and oh boy, did she use it. She invited all her girlfriends over multiple times a week in the evenings to use the pool. The old couple next door hated all the squealing and the funny-smelling smoke coming from the pool at all hours of the afternoon, and sometimes night, but hubby and I were frustrated for another reason. Tish and her friends didn't seem to understand that the pool was not a garbage bin. Every other morning the pool was a dump. Plastic cups, paper plates, beer bottles, and leftover food littered the deck. Cigarettes would be floating in the water along with soggy masses of what had been chips and cake, which attracted cockroaches. I can't tell you how many cockroaches drowned themselves in that pool, just to get at all those mushy masses. It was disgusting, but for a time hubby cleaned up after Tish. Once, hubby scooped out the pool, the equivalent of a KFC bucket of chicken bones, most of which still had meat on them. Exaggeration? Maybe. But even one chicken bone is one too many. I told hubby he was making an ass of himself, but he reasoned that if he didn't clean it up, we'd never get to use the pool ourselves. I stopped going to the pool to discourage him from cleaning up after Tish, but this went on for at least a month. Then one evening we bumped into Tish's latest fling, and we knew we'd been in for a rough night. He was, as we say in my country, a seedy fella. That means that man could drive up a broke-up 2008 Honda Accord that had been wheeling on a dummy tire for 2 years, and you'd still pay top dollar for him to rearrange your insides from both ends. Man could tell you he has 13 kids by 14 women, and you'd still beg him to nail you to a fence. Man looked like he'd kill you dead with his meat pipe, and when the coroner asked the medical examiner for your cause of death, you'd rise from the dead to exclaim in post-mortem ecstasy, that mother frickin' D. I don't remember what we had planned to do that night to avoid the noise, but I do remember that it was a Saturday, because I had to wash clothes first. I'd recently switched out my wash day with Sunday morning to Saturday night to avoid clashing with Tish in the shared laundry facility, which is a story I'll save for later because it's not related to this one. So, because I'm a creature of habit, sometime that evening I took our clothes to the wash house at the back of the complex. You have to walk past the pool to get to the wash house. Well, Tish and Wombbuster over there were in the pool. I didn't want to disturb their evening swim, so I tried to be as quiet as possible. They probably wouldn't have noticed me anyway, since they looked to be one flesh against the faint blue underwater lights. You can hear a lot from the wash house. I heard a lot from the wash house. I saw a lot from the wash house, too. Think Showgirl's 1995 pool scene. So the next morning, hubby went to clean the pool, and ladies and gentlemen, he got a lovely surprise. 2, in fact. Right next to the pool, in plain sight, was a pink G-string. It looked torn, but we didn't inspect it closely enough to confirm. and floating in the pool was a condom. Y'all, they broke my husband. Hubby just kinda stooped to the edge of the pool for a while, with a look of pure disgust, and shook his head. He didn't even try to pour chlorine in the pool, because, even though we know it's not possible, it wouldn't have been any use. Wombbuster looked so seedy he could probably nut a gallon of bleach and still impregnate you if you dipped your big toe in the jug. But true to the entitled fashion we'd come to expect from our neighbor upstairs, Tish was confused that when she went to use the pool a few days later, and the garbage, including the condom, was still in the pool. I know, because we bumped into each other on the way to the cars for work, and she asked me if hubby wasn't in charge of maintaining the pool anymore. I told Tish that hubby was never in charge. He'd been doing it because he was a nice guy. A sap, but a nice guy. Well, I guess Tish didn't believe us, because a few days later, I got a call from our landlord. She wanted to know if the pool skimmer hubby used to clean the pool was ours or hers. It was ours. The landlord thanked us for cleaning the pool for so long. Pardoned her, but she'd totally forgotten that she hadn't hired a maintenance guy to take care of the pool. We weren't too worried, though. Tish had called her, apparently having assumed that the landlord had reduced our rent in exchange for hubby's services. But the landlord set Tish straight. This female dog and her seedy-ass man spelunked in a community pool, and then she got mad that her neighbor wouldn't clean it up, that she called our landlord to convince her to revoke a privilege she assumed we were getting. Did I blame hubby? Yeah. Did I want to shove that old condom down Tish's ear? Of course. But I didn't want to risk the chance of getting pregnant by touching that thing. Well, moving forward, the pool wasn't nearly half as clean as when hubby was maintaining it. But Tish's condoms were someone else's problem after that night. And of course, we got a nice new sign at the pool that summer. No food allowed and no swimming at night. And that's the end of today's video. I hope you all enjoyed. Remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and comment with your thoughts on the stories. Oh god, hiccups are murdering me.
It stopped!